Tonight, we've assembled a panel of reuse heroes to talk about what needs to happen to save our oceans and our planet. Introducing our panel. So we have Bridget Croke, Managing Director at Closed Loop Partners, a New York-based investment and innovation firm and focused on building the circular economy. We've got Matt Prindiville, CEO and Chief Solutioneer at Upstream, an environmental nonprofit sparking innovative solutions to plastic pollution by shifting from single-use to reuse. We also have Elizabeth Segran, or Liz, Senior Staff Writer at Fast Company magazine. And we've got Benjamin Von Wong, visual artist, activist, and influencer. Welcome, everybody. Great to see you.
Thanks.
Yeah.
Great to be here, Danny.
For sure. Well, thank you all for joining us. Let's go and ground our conversation, our discussion tonight in vision. My first question to each of you has two parts. The first part is, what is your vision of a future without waste? And number two, how do you each elevate this vision through the work that you're doing in the world? I'd love to kick it off with Bridget, if you don't mind starting off and showing us and telling us your vision.
Great. Yeah, glad to be here. We're right now, we are spending a lot of money to throw valuable resources away. So we're envisioning a world where you can design waste out of the world and turn that waste into something that's valuable resources so that the packaging we're using today becomes the feedstock for future packaging and we extend the life of products and packaging. We fulfill, well, let me start. Can I start this part over? I can. Okay.
Sure. Yeah.
Okay. At Closed Loop Partners, we're fulfilling that vision by investing in early stage innovation from reusable, refillable models and infrastructure around both recycling and reuse models and kind of other innovation across the supply chain in order to scale what we call the circular economy, which solves to that challenge.
Love that. Thank you, Bridget. And Liz, what about you as a journalist? What have you seen and what's the vision that you think we're hopefully going to achieve in the future?
So I write mostly about the fashion industry, which is a hugely wasteful industry, both from the consumer perspective, we wear our clothes a few times and then we throw them away, to the entire supply chain. It's just an incredibly wasteful landscape out there. And what we're seeing now is really interesting circular models where clothes get sort of extended because people are, reselling them or they're different sharing services. But my real exciting sort of vision for the future is a world where we can recycle clothes the way that we're currently recycling a lot of other products. And I'm sure those of you who are watching have been so excited about the different products we're seeing through Reusies. But one day I want to be able to take this dress, put it in a recycling container, and then have it turned back into a dress so that there's no waste in the system. That is my vision. And the way that I'm trying to bring this vision into reality is as a journalist. I spend so much of my time digging into all of the interesting new technologies that are out there. There are actually really cool fashion recycling technologies that are on the cusp of being made. I can't wait to see that happen. And just educating people out there about exactly how wasteful our current consumption is and what we need to do to change it. That's the role that I see that I'm playing in this process.
That's incredible. Thank you so much, Liz. Ben, what about you? Visual arts, how are you bringing your vision to life through your work?
Well, I think my dream would be to live in a world in which I didn't have to have a trade-off between convenience and product. Like, I feel like, we just want to live life, simply buy the things that we want. I'll just do that whole thing again. That was someone rushing out of the drive-thru. All right. Wait, can you just do the prompt, Danny, and I'll hop in? Thanks.
Sure. Definitely. Ben, what about you? What's your vision through your work as a visual artist?
Yeah, so my dream, the world that I wish we could live in, is one where we didn't always have to second guess every single purchase decision. I dream of a world in which every decision is just easy and natural, so that it's not, we don't walk into a supermarket and realize that like 95% of what's there are things that aren't designed to be reused. They're just designed to be disposed. The work that I do, though, really focuses, I think, on closing the gap between the heart and the mind. I think for many of us still in many parts of the world, when we consume stuff, we throw it in the trash, we put it in recycling, and it just gets sent away. And so the work that I do tries to highlight how all these different tiny little consumption decisions really add up over time. And so I think it's one thing to read a fact, and it's another thing to see a piece of art and to feel it. And that's what I hope to do.
That definitely resonates with me, Ben. I mean, it feels like a constant tug of war between the heart and the mind, making decisions day in and day out and wanting to do the best that you can with what you have. But at the same time, it's like, how can we bring that together? How can convenience, like you said, be a part of this reused economy and we can make better choices without having to sacrifice things that we need and want. I love that. And Matt, your vision, what's your vision?
Yeah, I love that too, Ben. I mean, our vision at Upstream is really that, 10, 15 years from now, you go to any city in the world and you're not going to see any more overflowing garbage cans. You're not going to see any litter on the streets. You're not going to see any plastic on the beaches or wildlife choking on plastic. And you're certainly not going to see any disposable stuff when you go out to eat at a restaurant or when you're getting a meal delivered to your home or you're ordering your groceries or ordering products online, because the companies that we're featuring tonight will have replicated and scaled throughout the world. And the activists that we're honoring will have passed policies throughout the world. And we really will have figured out how to get the things that we want and need without generating any waste. So this is really kind of our dream at Upstream. It's what gets all of us excited to get up in the morning and go to work.
Love that, Matt. Thank you so much. And I'm most excited about being here tonight because of this vision. You all are the visionaries, and we're going to see a lot more of them throughout the show. But it's so important that we continue to build our vision individually and collectively, especially in times like this, trying times where things seem impossible. But yet, it's those people who are brave enough to step up, stand up, and speak up, and actually take action. That's the way we're going to get to the vision that we're all seeking. So I'm super thrilled to be here. So let's get into some more questions, some of the nitty gritty stuff. I think it's important that we kind of step back a bit and talk about how do we get here, where we are in our present time, the challenges that we're facing, within every type of industry, the environment, everything included in the work that you do. We're all tackling different challenges. So how do we get here? And I'd love to begin first with Ben. From your perspective, what do you think brought us to this point?
I mean, I think everyone had the best of intentions when plastic was invented. It was there to reduce the amount of trees that were cut down, right? And a different way to package goods, a different way to move things around, a way that you could store stuff for longer so you could reduce food waste. There was all these positive ideas behind how this wonderful material could really help us lead better lives. But somewhere along the line, I don't think plastic in and of itself is a bad material. It's actually a fantastic material, but the way we use it, the disposable culture of convenience that we've kind of adopted is really the core of the problem. Like when the average, single-use plastic item is used for less than 10 minutes and then thrown away, it's just, it doesn't actually matter what kind of material we use. It's probably not going to be a long-term solution regardless. And so, as with most generations preceding us, we just need to build on the lessons that we learn and not be scared to change when it becomes clear that change needs to happen. Sometimes it's easier to just look away, but I think we owe it to the next generation to take action. We live on a finite planet with an infinite number of generations to come after, so I think there is some responsibility there.
Thanks, Ben. Yeah, and I guess, Liz, from your work and your writing, I know you've probably done lots of in-depth research about this world that we're in. And I'm just curious, from your perspective, beyond fashion, what else have you seen or observed and researched through your writing?
I think it's really interesting because there was this kind of shift in the way that we thought about almost every form of consumption, where, it wasn't really that long ago that people were looking for and had durable products in their life. And so that applied to clothes, but it applied to almost everything in their lives, right? The concept of, plastic bags that you would throw away. I mean, that's a relatively new concept. Things like takeout containers. I mean, 1 or 2 generations ago, that wasn't something that people had, right? And I think that there was this kind of shift in the way that we thought, where everything that Ben said, all of these amazing new materials entered the market. But I think culturally, we changed, and our thinking changed, and we decided that we had a right to that kind of convenience, and that there was something democratic about everybody having a right to owning a lot of stuff, being able to throw it away whenever we wanted that to happen, right? And so I actually feel very encouraged when I look at the history of this, simply because if you just go back 100 years, if you go back 50 years, people's behaviors were very different. Our parents, and we have collective memory here. We can look at how, our grandparents lived, or our great grandparents lived. And they were surrounded by these products that were well-made, durable, designed to last a lifetime. Ideally, things that would get passed on to their children, right? And we're talking here about everything from clothes to dinnerware, to the things that we have around the house, like carpets, things like that. And so, to me, I think that that's really encouraging, because if part of this is not just about the science and the technology of creating these products, but about culture, I believe that there are ways that we can change culture and change it relatively quickly. So imagine if we start doing the things that we're talking about today, with changing the way that we think about disposability, it is possible that within 50 years, 100 years, 1 or 2 generations, we could have an entirely new system at work. And to me, I think that's really encouraging.
Absolutely. Definitely encouraging. And, like I mentioned before, we're living in trying times and having to deal with COVID-19 pandemic. We've seen an upsurgence of single-use products because of the pandemic, and that has shifted the game a bit, but it also provides an extraordinary opportunity for us to create a new way, a different way. And Matt, I know that you've been in this realm and this work for a long, long time. Talk about where you began, what inspired you to even jump into this space, and how did we get here?
Well, that's I think for me, just like thinking about how we got to where we are today right now, I think that question to me is fascinating. And I spent a bit of time researching that over my career. I think to really understand it, you have to go back in time to this post-World War II era. You had all of these extraction and manufacturing industries that had ramped up their production to serve the war effort. But once the war was over, they were like, what are we going to do? And, this idea was born that we have to keep churning all these materials through the economy in peacetime as well as in wartime. And one of those big ideas was to sell all those natural resources and materials to the American people in the form of disposable products. A lot of you might have seen the Time Life magazine article from the 1950s called The Throwaway Society. It's kind of where we got that idea. And it's a picture of an American family throwing up all these throwaway plates and cups and cutlery. And it was meant to be celebratory, right? It was meant to be like, we're never going to have to wash a plate again. And isn't that amazing? But of course, you had all of these folks that had just been through World War II, and they were like, we didn't just grow a victory garden and save every little bit of metal to melt into a gun just so that we could now start throwing everything away. They thought that was crazy. But the folks that didn't think it was crazy were the emerging consumer packaged goods sector, the beverage sector, and of course, this new thing called fast food. And, you flash forward, 50, 60 years in the future, and we had the drive-in restaurant giving way to the drive-through restaurant, and to-go coffee was invented, and to-go containers, and all the meal delivery that we're seeing today that Liz was talking about. And when you think about it, you've got all of these disposable materials that are being churned through the economy by billions of people, billions of times a day after day, year after year. All for this like ephemeral little moment of, having a bite to eat or drinking a drink. And so when you think about that, it's really an astounding amount of natural resources. And for me, that was the thing that got me motivated. Like we have to stop extracting all of these natural resources from the planet. We have to figure out how to kind of close the extraction side of the economy, close the waste side of the economy, and build a more circular economy. And that's really that's what motivated me 20 some odd years ago when I got into this business. Reading Bill McDonald's Cradle to Cradle and Paul Hawkins' The Ecology of Commerce. Those two books were kind of like seminal books in my upbringing around this stuff.
That's so awesome, Matt. Yeah, and taking that culture of convenience and transforming it into a culture of reuse and durable goods, things that last. I mean, that is just, to me, it's a mindset. It's something that each of us internally have to reckon with and recognize in our own individual lifestyles. How can we make those changes that we need to make? And then hopefully that'll amplify beyond just ourselves and into our communities and around the world.